And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, "Come and see." And I looked and saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. And when he opened the 2nd seal, I heard the 2nd living creature saying, "Come and see." And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was given to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that they should slay one another. And a great sword was given to him. And when he opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, "A measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." And when he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature saying, "Come and see." And I looked and saw a pale horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and the grave followed with him. And authority was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and by the beasts of the earth. And when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the beings of those having been slain for the word of Yahuwah, and for the witness which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Adonai, Kodesh and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" And there was given to each one a white robe, and they were told that they should rest a little while longer, until both their fellow servants and their brothers, who would be killed as they were, reached completion. And I looked when he opened the 6th seal, and saw a great earthquake came to be, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the Shamayim fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its unripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind. And the Shamayim departed like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the sovereigns of the earth, and the great ones, and the rich ones, and the commanders, and the mighty, and every slave and every free one, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand?" And after this I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Elohim. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea, saying, "Do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads." And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Yehudah, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Gad, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Asher, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Shimon, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Lewi, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Yissaschar, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Yosef, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000 were sealed. After this I looked and saw a great crowd, which no one was able to count, out of all nations and tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes, and palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, Deliverance belongs to our Elohim, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. And all the messengers stood around the throne, and the elders, and the 4 living creatures, and fell on their faces before the throne, and worshipped Elohim, saying, Amen, the barakah, and the esteem, and the wisdom, and the thanksgiving, and the respect, and the power, and the might to our Elohim, forever and ever. Amen. And one of the elders responded, saying to me, Who are these dressed in white robes, and where did they come from? And I said to him, Master, you know. And he said to me, These are those coming out of the great distress, having washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Because of this, they are before the throne of Elohim, and serve him day and night in his dwelling place. And he who sits on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun strike them, nor any heat, because the Lamb, who is in the midst of the throne, shall shepherd them and lead them to fountains of waters of Chai. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. And when he opened the 7th seal, there came to be silence in the Shamayim for about half an hour. And I saw the 7 messengers who stand before Elohim, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another messenger came and stood at the altar, holding a golden censer, and much incense was given to him, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the Kodashim upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, with the prayers of the Kodashim, went up before Elohim from the hand of the messenger. And the messenger took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, and thunders, and lightnings, and an earthquake. And the 7 messengers who held the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And the first messenger sounded, and there came to be hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. And 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. And the second messenger sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and 1/3 of the sea became blood, and 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. And the 3rd messenger sounded, and a great star fell from the Shamayim burning like a torch, and it fell on 1/3 of the rivers and on the fountains of water. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and 1/3 of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the waters because they were made bitter. And the 4th messenger sounded, and 1/3 of the sun was struck, and 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, so that 1/3 of them were darkened, and 1/3 of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. And I looked, and I heard an eagle flying in mid-Shamayim, crying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to those dwelling upon the earth, because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the 3 messengers who are about to sound. And the 5th messenger sounded, and I saw a star from the Shamayim, which had fallen to the earth, and the key to the pit of the deep was given to it. And he opened the pit of the deep, and smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun was darkened, also the air, because of the smoke of the pit. And out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and authority was given to them as the scorpions of the earth possess authority. And it was said to them that they shall not harm the grass of the earth, or anything green, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Yahuwah upon their foreheads. And it was given to them that they should not kill them, but to torture them for 5 months. And their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings a man. And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and they shall long to die, but death shall flee from them. And the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men, and they had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth, and they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots of many horses running into battle. And they have tails like scorpions and stings, and in their tails is their authority to harm men 5 months. And they have over them a sovereign, the messenger of the pit of the deep, whose name in Ivri is Abaddon, but in Yawanite he has the name Apolluon. The first woe is past. See, 2 woes are still coming after this. And the 6th messenger sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before Elohim, saying to the 6th messenger who had the trumpet, Release the 4 messengers, those having been bound at the great river Parath. And the 4 messengers, those having been prepared for the hour and day and month and year, were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million, and I heard the number of them. And this is how I saw the horses in the vision, and those who sat on them, having breastplates of fiery red, and hyacinth blue, and sulfur yellow. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, and smoke, and sulfur. 1/3 of mankind was killed by these 3, by the fire, and the smoke, and the sulfur, which came out of their mouths. For the authority of the horses is in their mouth, and in their tails, for their tails are like serpents, having heads, and with them they do harm. And the rest of mankind, who were not killed by these plagues, did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship the demons and idols of gold, and of silver, and of brass, and of stone, and of wood, which are neither able to see, nor to hear, nor to walk. And they did not repent of their murders, nor of their drug sorceries, nor of their whoring, nor of their thefts. And I saw another strong messenger coming down from the Shamayim, robed in a cloud, and a rainbow on his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like columns of fire. And having in his hand a little book opened, and he placed his right foot on the sea, and his left foot on the land, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, 7 thunders spoke their sounds. And when the 7 thunders spoke their sounds, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from the Shamayim saying to me, Seal up what the 7 thunders spoke, and do not write them. And the messenger whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to the Shamayim, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the Shamayim and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there shall be no further delay. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th messenger, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall also be ended, as he declared to his servants the Nevi'im. And the voice which I heard out of the Shamayim spoke to me again and said, Go, take the little book which is opened in the hand of the messenger, standing on the sea and on the earth. And I went to the messenger and said to him, Give me the little book. And he said to me, Take and eat it, and it shall make your stomach bitter, but it shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the little book out of the messenger's hand and ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And he said to me, You have to Navah again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and sovereigns. And a reed like a rod was given to me, and the messenger stood, saying, Rise and anoint the Mishkan of Elohim, and the altar, and those worshipping in it. But cast out the court which is outside the Mishkan, and do not anoint it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they shall trample the Kodesh city underfoot for 42 months. And I shall give unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall Navah 1,260 days, clad in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees, and the 2 lampstands that are standing before the Elohim of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire comes out from their mouth and consumes their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he has to be killed in that way. These possess authority to shut the Shamayim, so that no rain falls in the days of their nevuah, and they possess authority over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues, as often as they want. And when they have ended their witness, the beast coming up out of the pit of the deep shall fight against them, and overcome them, and kill them, and their dead bodies in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Mitzrayim, where also our Adon was impaled. And some of the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations see their dead bodies for 3.5 days, and do not allow their dead bodies to be placed into tombs. And those dwelling on the earth rejoice over them and exult. And they shall send gifts to each other, because these 2 Nevi'im tortured those dwelling on the earth. And after the 3.5 days, a spirit of Chai from Elohim entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. And they heard a loud voice from the Shamayim saying to them, "Come up here." And they went up into the Shamayim in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. And in that hour there came to be a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. And in the earthquake 7,000 men were killed, and the rest became afraid and gave esteem to the Elohim of the Shamayim. The second woe is past, and see, the third woe is coming speedily. And the 7th messenger sounded, and there came to be loud voices in the Shamayim, saying, "The reign of this world has become that of our Adon, and of his Mashiach, and he shall reign forever and ever." And the 24 elders sitting before Elohim on their thrones fell on their faces and worshipped Elohim, saying, "We give you thanks, O Yahuwah El Shaddai, the one who is and who was and who is coming, because you have taken your great power and reigned." And the nations were enraged, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead to be judged, and to give the reward to your servants, the Nevi'im, and to the Kodeshim, and to those who revere your name, small and great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. And the Mishkan of Elohim was opened in the Shamayim, and the ark of his covenant was seen in his Mishkan. And there came to be lightnings and voices and thunders, and an earthquake and great hail. And a great sign was seen in the Shamayim, a woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign was seen in the Shamayim, and see, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on his heads. And his tail draws 1/3 of the stars of the Shamayim and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she bore a male child, who was to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught away to Elohim and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days. And there came to be fighting in the Shamayim. Mikael and his messengers fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his messengers fought. But they were not strong enough, nor was a place found for them in the Shamayim any longer. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old, called the Devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in the Shamayim, "Now have come the deliverance, and the power and the reign of our Elohim, and the authority of his Mashiach, for the accuser of our brothers, who accused them before our Elohim day and night, has been thrown down. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb, and because of the word of their witness, and they did not love their lives to the death. Because of this, rejoice, O Shamayim, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the Devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has little time. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, to fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. And out of his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river after the woman, to cause her to be swept away by the river. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the river which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Yahuwah and possessing the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach. And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads names of blasphemy. And the beast I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as having been slain to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the earth marveled after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? Who is able to fight with him? And he was given a mouth speaking greatness and blasphemies. And he was given authority to do so 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against Yahuwah, to blaspheme his name and his tent and those dwelling in the Shamayim. And it was given to him to fight with the Kodeshim and to overcome them. And authority was given to him over every tribe and tongue and nation, and all those dwelling on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of Chai, of the slain Lamb, from the foundation of the world, shall worship him. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who brings into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword has to be killed with the sword. Here is the endurance and the belief of the Kodeshim. And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from the Shamayim on the earth before men. And he leads astray those dwelling on the earth, because of those signs which he was given to do before the beast, saying to those dwelling on the earth, to make an image to the beast, who was wounded by the sword, yet lived. And there was given to him to give spirit to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship the image of the beast. And he causes all, both small and great, and rich and poor, and free and slave, to be given a mark upon their right hand or upon their foreheads, and that no one should be able to buy or sell, except he that has the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is the wisdom. He who has understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And I looked and saw a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of the Shamayim, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne, and before the 4 living creatures, and the elders. And no one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. They are those who were not defiled with women, for they are maidens. They are those following the Lamb wherever he goes. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Yahuwah and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no falsehood, for they are blameless before the throne of Elohim. And I saw another messenger flying in mid-Shamayim, holding the everlasting good news to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, "Revere Elohim and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made the Shamayim and the earth and sea and fountains of water." And another messenger followed, saying, "Bavel is fallen that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring." And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and his image, and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahuwah, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the Kodesh messengers and before the Lamb, and the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, those worshipping the beast and his image. Also, if anyone receives the mark of his name, here is the endurance of the Kodeshim. Here are those guarding the commands of Yahuwah and the belief of Yahushua." And I heard a voice out of the Shamayim saying to me, "Write, Baruch are the dead who die in the Adon from now on. Yes, says the Ruach, in order that they rest from their labors, and their works follow with them." And I looked and saw a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was one like the Ben of Adam, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another messenger came out of the Mishkan, crying with a loud voice to the one sitting on the cloud, "Send your sickle and reap, because the hour has come for you to reap, because the harvest of the earth is ripe." And the one sitting on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another messenger came out of the Mishkan, which is in the Shamayim, and he too held a sharp sickle. And another messenger came out from the altar, having authority over the fire, and he cried with a loud cry to him having the sharp sickle, saying, "Send your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe." And the messenger thrust his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of Yahuwah. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress, up to the bridles of the horses, for about 1,600 stadium. And I saw another sign in the Shamayim, great and marvelous, 7 messengers having the 7 last plagues, for the wrath of Yahuwah was ended in them. And I saw like a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those overcoming the beast and his image and his mark and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, holding harps of Elohim, and they sing the song of Moshe, the servant of Yahuwah, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are your works, Yahuwah El Shaddai. Righteous and true are your ways, O sovereign of the Kodashim. Who shall not revere you, O Yahuwah, and esteem your name? Because you alone are kind, because all nations shall come and worship before you, for your righteousnesses have been made manifest. And after this I looked and saw the Mishkan of the tent of witness in the Shamayim was opened, and out of the Mishkan came the 7 messengers, having the 7 plagues, dressed in clean bright linen, and having their chests girded with golden bands. And one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 messengers 7 golden bowls, filled with the wrath of Yahuwah, who lives forever and ever. And the Mishkan was filled with smoke from the esteem of Elohim and from his power, and no one was able to enter the Mishkan until the 7 plagues of the 7 messengers were ended. And I heard a loud voice from the Mishkan, saying to the 7 messengers, Go and pour out the bowls of the wrath of Yahuwah on the earth. And the first went and poured out his bowl upon the earth, and an evil and wicked sore came upon the men, those having the mark of the beast, and those worshipping his image. And the second messenger poured out his bowl on the sea, and it became blood as of a dead one, and every living creature in the sea died. And the third messenger poured out his bowl on the rivers and fountains of water, and they became blood. And I heard the messenger of the waters saying, You are righteous, O Yahuwah, the one who is and who was and who shall be, because you have judged these. Because they have shed the blood of Kodashim and Nevi'im, and you have given them blood to drink, for they deserve it. And I heard another out of the altar saying, Yes, Yahuwah El Shaddai, true and righteous are your judgments. And the 4th messenger poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was given to him to burn men with fire. And men were burned with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of Yahuwah, who possesses authority over these plagues. And they did not repent to give him esteem. And the 5th messenger poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and his reign became darkened. And they gnawed their tongues from pain, and they blasphemed the Elohim of the Shamayim for their pains and their sores, and did not repent of their works. And the 6th messenger poured out his bowl on the great river Perath, and its water was dried up, in order to prepare the way of the sovereigns from the east. And I saw out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits, as frogs, for they are spirits of demons, doing signs, which go out to the sovereigns of the entire world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of Yahuwah El Shaddai. See, I am coming as a thief. Baruch is he who is staying awake and guarding his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And they gathered them together to the place called in Ivri Har Megiddo. And the seventh messenger poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the Mishkan of the Shamayim from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there came to be noises and thunders and lightnings, and there came to be a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake as had not came to be since men were on the earth. And the great city became divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Bavel was remembered before Elohim, to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And great hail from the Shamayim fell upon men, every hailstone about the weight of a talenton. And men blasphemed Elohim for the plague of the hail, because that plague was exceedingly great. And one of the 7 messengers, who had the 7 bowls, came and spoke with me, saying to me, "Come, I shall show you the judgment of the great whore sitting on many waters, with whom the sovereigns of the earth committed whoring, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her whoring." And he carried me away in the Ruach into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, covered with names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup filled with abominations and the filthiness of her whoring, and upon her forehead a name written, a secret: Bavel the Great, the mother of the whores and of the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the Kodeshim, and with the blood of the witnesses of Yahushua. And having seen her, I marveled, greatly marveled. And the messenger said to me, "Why did you marvel? Let me explain to you the secret of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was, and is not, and is about to come up out of the pit of the deep, and goes to destruction. And those dwelling on the earth, whose names are not written in the book of Chai from the foundation of the world, shall marvel when they see the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. Here is the mind having wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and there are 7 sovereigns. 5 have fallen, and 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he has to remain a little while. And the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and goes to destruction. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 sovereigns who have not yet received reign, but receive authority as sovereigns with the beast for 1 hour. They have 1 mind, and they shall give their power and authority to the beast. They shall fight with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Adon of masters and sovereign of sovereigns. And those with him are called and chosen and trustworthy. And he said to me, "The waters which you saw, where the whore sits, are peoples and crowds and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these shall hate the whore, and lay her waste and naked, and eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For Elohim gave it into their hearts to do his mind, to be of one mind, and to give their reign to the beast, until the words of Elohim shall be accomplished. And the woman whom you saw is that great city, having sovereignty over the sovereigns of the earth. And after this I saw another messenger coming down from the Shamayim, having great authority, and the earth was lightened from his esteem. And he cried with a mighty voice, saying, Bavel the great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, and a haunt for every unclean and hated bird, because all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her whoring, and the sovereigns of the earth have committed whoring with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the power of her riotous living. And I heard another voice from the Shamayim saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues, because her sins have piled up to reach the Shamayim, and Elohim has remembered her unrighteousnesses. Render to her as she indeed rendered, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix for her double. As much as she esteemed herself and lived luxuriously, so much torture and grief give to her, because in her heart she says, I sit as sovereigness, and I am not a widow, and I do not see mourning at all. Because of this her plagues shall come in one day, death and mourning and scarcity of food, and she shall be burned up with fire, because Yahuwah Elohim, who judges her, is mighty. And the sovereigns of the earth who committed whoring and lived luxuriously with her shall weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torture, saying, Woe, woe, the great city Bavel, the mighty city, because your judgment has come in 1 hour. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their merchandise any more. Merchandise of gold and silver and precious stone and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all citron wood and every object of ivory and every object of most precious wood and bronze and iron and marble and cinnamon and incense and fragrant oil and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and cattle and sheep and horses and carriages and bodies and lives of men. And the fruit that your being longed for has gone from you, and all your riches and splendor are lost to you, and you shall find them no more, not at all. The merchants of those who became rich by her, shall stand at a distance for fear of her torture, weeping and mourning, and saying, Woe, woe, the great city that was dressed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches was laid waste, and every shipmaster and every passenger and sailors and as many as worked the sea stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? And they threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and mourning, and saying, Woe, woe, the great city, in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she was laid waste. Rejoice over her, O Shamayim, and you Kodesh emissaries, and Nevi'im, for Yahuwah has completely avenged you on her. And one mighty messenger picked up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, with such a rush the great city Bavel shall be thrown down, and shall not be found any more at all. And the sound of harpists and musicians and flutists and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more at all, and no craftsman of any trade shall be found in you any more at all, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more at all, and the light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more at all, and the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more at all. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, for by your drug sorcery all the nations were led astray. And in her was found the blood of Nevi'im and Kodeshim, and of all who were slain on the earth. And after this I heard a loud voice of a great crowd in the Shamayim, saying, Hallelujah! Deliverance and esteem and respect and power to Yahuwah our Elohim, because true and righteous are his judgments, because he has judged the great whore who corrupted the earth with her whoring, and he has avenged on her the blood of his servants shed by her. And a second time they said, Hallelujah! And her smoke rises up forever and ever. And the 24 elders and the 4 living creatures fell down and worshipped Elohim, who sat on the throne, saying, Amen, Hallelujah. And a voice came from the throne, saying, Praise our Elohim, all you his servants, and those who revere him, both small and great. And I heard as the voice of a great crowd, as the sound of many waters, and as the sound of mighty thunders, saying, Hallelujah, for Yahuwah El Shaddai reigns. Let us be glad and rejoice and give him praise, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife prepared herself. And to her it was given to be dressed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteousnesses of the Kodeshim. And he said to me, Right, Baruch are those who have been called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, These are the true words of Elohim. And I fell at his feet to worship him, but he said to me, See, do not. I am your fellow servant, and of your brothers who possess the witness of Yahushua. Worship Yahuwah, for the witness of Yahushua is the spirit of Nevuah. And I saw the Shamayim opened, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Trustworthy and True, and in righteousness he judges and fights. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, having a name that had been written, which no one had perceived except himself. And having been dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahuwah. And the armies in the Shamayim, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. And on his robe and on his banner he has a name written, Sovereign of Sovereigns and Adon of masters. And I saw one messenger standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in mid-Shamayim, Come and gather together for the supper of the great Elohim, to eat the flesh of sovereigns, and the flesh of commanders, and the flesh of strong ones, and the flesh of horses, and of those who sit on them, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, both small and great. And I saw the beast, and the sovereigns of the earth, and their armies gathered together to fight him who sat on the horse and his army. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. The two were thrown alive into the lake of fire, burning with sulfur, and the rest were killed with the sword which came from the mouth of him who sat on the horse, and all the birds were filled with their flesh. And I saw a messenger coming down from the Shamayim, having the key to the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand. And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the Devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the pit of the deep, and shut him up, and put a seal on him, so that he should lead the nations no more astray, until the 1,000 years were ended, and after that he has to be released for a little while. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them, and the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yahushua, and because of the word of Yahuwah, and who did not worship the beast, nor his image, and did not receive his mark upon their foreheads or upon their hands. And they lived and reigned with Mashiach for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead did not come to Chai until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Baruch and Kodesh is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority over these, but they shall be Kohanim of Yahuwah and of Mashiach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. And they came up over the breadth of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the Kodeshim and the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of the Shamayim, and consumed them. And the Devil, who led them astray, was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him who was sitting on it, from whose face the earth and the Shamayim fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is Chai, and the dead were judged from what was written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and the grave gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. And the death and the grave were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of Chai, he was thrown into the lake of fire. And I saw a renewed Shamayim and a renewed earth, for the former Shamayim and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. And I, Yohanan, saw the Kodesh city, renewed Yerushalayim, coming down out of the Shamayim from Elohim, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the Shamayim saying, See, the booth of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them, and be their Elohim. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, and there shall be no more pain, for the former have passed away. And he who was sitting on the throne said, See, I make all new. And he said to me, Write, for these words are true and trustworthy. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Aleph and the Taw, the beginning and the end. To the one who thirsts, I shall give of the fountain of the water of Chai without payment. The one who overcomes shall inherit all this, and I shall be his Elohim, and he shall be my son. But as for the cowardly and untrustworthy and abominable and murderers and those who whore and drug sorcerers and idolaters and all the false, their part is in the lake which burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. And one of the 7 messengers who held the 7 bowls filled with the 7 last plagues came to me and spoke with me, saying, Come, I shall show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the Ruach to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the Kodesh Yerushalayim, descending out of the Shamayim from Elohim, having the esteem of Elohim, and her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and having a great and high wall, having 12 gates, and at the gates 12 messengers, and names written on them, which are of the 12 tribes of the children of Yisrael. 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 emissaries of the Lamb. And he who spoke with me had a golden measuring rod to measure the city and its gates and its wall. And the city lies 4-cornered, and its length is as great as its breadth. And he measured the city with the rod, 12,000 stadion. The length and the breadth and height of it are equal. And he measured its wall, 144 amah, according to the measure of a man, that is, of a messenger. And the structure of its wall was jasper, and the city was clean gold, like clear glass. And the foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation, jasper; the second, sapphire; the third, agate; the fourth, emerald; the fifth, sardonyx; the sixth, ruby; the seventh, chrysolite; the eighth, beryl; the ninth, topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each one of the gates was a single pearl. And the street of the city was clean gold, like transparent glass. And I saw no Mishkan in it, for Yahuwah El Shaddai is its Mishkan, and the Lamb. And the city had no need of the sun, nor of the moon, to shine in it, for the esteem of Elohim lightened it, and the Lamb is its lamp. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the sovereigns of the earth bring their esteem into it. And its gates shall not be shut at all by day, for night shall not be there. And they shall bring the esteem and the appreciation of the nations into it. And there shall by no means enter into it whatever is unclean, neither anyone doing abomination and falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of Chai. And he showed me a river of water of Chai, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of Yahuwah and of the Lamb. In the middle of its street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of Chai, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And no longer shall there be any curse, and the throne of Yahuwah and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And they shall see his face, and his name be upon their foreheads. And night shall be no more, and they shall have no need of a lamp or the light of the sun, because Yahuwah Elohim shall give them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. And he said to me, these words are trustworthy and true. And Yahuwah Elohim of the Kodesh Nevi'im has sent his messenger to show his servants what has to take place with speed. See, I am coming speedily. Baruch is he who guards the words of the nevuah of this book. And I, Yohanan, saw and heard these. And when I heard and saw, I fell down to worship before the feet of the messenger who showed me these. And he said to me, see, do not, for I am your fellow servant, and of your brothers the Nevi'im, and of those who are guarding the words of this book. Worship Yahuwah. And he said to me, do not seal the words of the nevuah of this book, because the time is near. He who does wrong, let him do more wrong. He who is filthy, let him be more filthy. He who is righteous, let him be more righteous. He who is Kodesh, let him be more Kodesh. And see, I am coming speedily, and my reward is with me, to give to each according to his work. I am the Aleph and the Tah, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Baruch are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of Chai, and to enter through the gates into the city. But outside are the dogs, and those who enchant with drugs, and those who whore, and the murderers, and the idolaters, and all who love and do falsehood. I, Yahushua, have sent my messenger to witness these to you in the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring of Dawid, the bright and morning star. And the Ruach and the bride say, come. And he who hears, let him say, Come, and he who thirsts, come, and he who desires it, take the water of Chai without paying. For I witness to everyone hearing the words of the nevuah of this book. If anyone adds to them, Yahuwah shall add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this nevuah, Yahuwah shall take away his part from the book of Chai and out of the Kodesh city, which are written in this book. He that bears witness of these says, Yes, I am coming speedily. Amen. Yes, come, Adonai Yahushua. The favor of our Adon Yahushua HaMashiach be with the Kodeshim. Amen.